Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Center for Postgraduate Studies, I welcome you all to the 6th forum presentation for the students of the Postgraduate Diploma Program in Rural Development Management. It's my privilege to introduce today's speaker, Dr. C Kondaiah, Director General of the National Institute of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, formerly called NIRD. He holds a doctorate in sociology from Faculty of Social Sciences, Usmania University, MA in Social Cultural Anthropology from Sri Venkateswara University. He started his career as a researcher in Tribal Cultural Research and Training Institute, Hyderabad in 1982. Later, he became a faculty member in National Institute of Small Industry Extension Training, NIRD, in 1989. He was General Manager of Andhra Pradesh Scheduled Caste Finance Corporation from 1995 to 97. Later became Director Center for Entrepreneurship and Industrial Extension in 1998. He was elevated to the post of Director General NIMSIM from June 2003 till date. He was instrumental in strengthening the institute through a range of services such as training, research, consultancy, extension, information, and education. As a head of the National Institute, he actively participated in the discussions, meetings related to formulation of policies and promotion of NIMSIM in India 2003. With this brief introduction, I invite Dr. C Kondaiah garu to make a presentation. I welcome you, sir.
Very good evening. Friends, my colleagues from our institute, I think please stand and Dr. Vallabh Reddy, he is the Professor Dev and Professor Dr. Rani. Our colleagues from my institute. In fact, we have come here to participate in the half-day workshop on skill development. And I thought that I must utilize this opportunity to share our experience on cluster development. Okay, I once again thank to our DDG and the Faculty of Postgrad Diploma, and thank to you, that is very important because you are going to bear with us for another hour or so. So with this, I think let's go. This is one thing. First, let us see the a 12-minute a small documentary. The documentary we have prepared based on our experience on cluster development. So please see this one. After that, we will discuss.
Become a global village. Many countries across the world are deploying strategies and formulating policies for strengthening their economies. Small and medium enterprises, MSMEs in general, and micro and small enterprises in particular, have all of the policy planners in India and several countries elsewhere. Planners and policymakers have always been on the lookout for ways and means to strengthen the micro and small enterprises, MSEs sector, through various initiatives. Today, MSEs play a very important role in the Indian economy, as they provide employment to about 31 million persons and contribute to 45% of the manufacturing output, equivalent to 8% of the gross domestic product, GDP. Besides, the MSE sector generates 40% of the country's exports. With the onset of economic liberalization, the MSE sector has witnessed dilution of protective policy framework and search for ways that will ensure integration of this sector with the rest of the economy through innovative measures. One such mechanism to promote micro and small enterprises development that has become popular world over is the idea of focus on a industrial clusters.
సార్ వస్తారని
A
చెప్తా
cluster
ఉన్నారు.
is defined as a sectoral and geographic concentration of firms, especially micro and small enterprises, facing common opportunities and threats. Cluster-based development, in fact, is a growth engine for many of the small and medium enterprises all over the world. The geographic concentration of units in a cluster helps the firms to overcome isolation, reduce the weak capital base, improve and absorb technology advancement, improve the economies of scale, and enables the firms to become more flexible and competitive. Targeting of micro and small enterprise through cluster-based programs started way back in the 1970s through the concept of growth centers in DC MSME, formerly CEDO. State Bank of India initiative started in 1989, followed by Small Industries Development Bank of India, SIDBI, in 1991. United Nations Industry Development Organization, UNIDO, started cluster development programs in 4 Indian clusters in 1997. The Ministry of MSME, formerly Ministry of SSI, through the Office of Development Commissioner MSME, formerly DC SSI, launched a redesigned cluster-based UpTech scheme in 1998. Various state government institutions and some of the active NGOs also picked up cluster-based growth approach for micro and small enterprises. Thus, from the initial concept of technology upgradation and infrastructure development, the efforts of the Ministry of MSME at the national level introduced a holistic and demand-led approach for identification of the core constraints in a cluster and designing suitable interventions for their removal. Subsidy-oriented industrial policy is shifting towards self-sustainability. Clusters are not new to India. In the ancient times, skilled workers, especially artisans, had their own cluster groups. For example, in Narsapur in West Godavari district in Andhra Pradesh, a cluster group of women making crochet lace work was formed in 1844 itself. A Scottish missionary taught the local women on lacework items, which later developed into a cluster. The Narsapur crochet lace cluster is still going strong, and the lacework produced by the cluster is world famous. DCMSME, earlier DCSSI, Ministry of MSME, formerly Ministry of SSI, Government of India, is the apex organization in the country for the development of micro, small and medium enterprises. Providing a wide spectrum of services catering to the developmental needs of the MSME sector, the Office of the DC MSME has been functioning since 1954. A scheme on technology upgradation and modernization program called UpTech was operating in DC MSME to address the issues related to technology upgradation and modernization of MSME sector on cluster approach basis. It was later renamed as Micro and Small Enterprises Cluster Development Program MSE-CDP, formerly SICDP. Under the scheme, a holistic cluster development methodology is implemented in selected clusters in the country. Today, the DC MSME has taken up 90 clusters spread in 23 states of the country under MSE-CDP. MSME DIs, formerly SISIs, field organizations of DC, MSME, resource agencies like National Institute for MSME, formerly NICIET, EDII, and other agencies are implementing developmental activities in these clusters. To cater to the needs of the micro-small enterprise clusters of the country, and to enable the micro and small enterprises sector to face the challenges of globalization, DC MSME launched the MSE-CDP. 2 resource centers were set up by the Ministry of MSME. The National Resource Center for Cluster Development, NRCD, came into existence in January 2004 at National Institute for MSME, Hyderabad, with the principal charter of helping the MSE clusters by providing hand-holding and monitoring services in 20 clusters. center is also actively involved in organizing need-based training programs, workshops, seminars, research and extension services. The NRCD has an objective to become a global center of excellence in cluster development. The second resource center, that is, International Center for Cluster Competitiveness and Growth, has been set up at EDII Ahmedabad. The center is now providing hand-holding and monitoring services in 12 clusters and has a mandate to contribute for the development of clusters in general. Under the cluster development methodology, a cluster is identified based on the cluster's importance, promotability, viability, and sustainability. Initially, a diagnostic study of the cluster is conducted based on the knowledge gained by a participatory methodology about its constraints, local linkages, and local support systems. This is followed by the trust-building activity, preparation of an action plan, and its implementation. Regular evaluation and monitoring of the interventions and deliverables follow suit. The cluster development is coordinated by a Cluster Development Executive, CDE, who is expected to conceptualize the overall development strategy for the cluster and initiate implementation. Similarly, the role of MDA and BDS is very crucial for overall development of the cluster in terms of building networks and finding suitable solutions with proper interventions in technology upgradation, product designs, and export marketing. Coimbatore is often referred to as the hub for diversified industries and a growth center for adopting innovative process to meet the challenges in the global competition. The city has emerged as the natural wet grinder enterprises center due to the availability of the natural grinding stone suitable for wet grinders. The cluster is unique in terms of being the only such cluster manufacturing the product wet grinder. The wet grinder cluster Coimbatore is one among the clusters being developed now under the MSc CDP, formerly SICDP. There are about 700 micro, small, and medium wet grinder and component manufacturing units in Coimbatore. The cluster is providing employment directly to 20,000 persons and indirectly to 50,000 people. About 1 lakh wet grinders are manufactured in a month in India, of which 75,000 are from Coimbatore. The turnover of the units manufacturing wet grinders in the country is about 300 crore rupees, that is $75 million annually, of which Coimbatore cluster's contribution is about 225 crore rupees or $56.2 million. The constraints affecting the growth of the cluster constituent units were identified in the diagnostic study as lack of R&D and testing facility, intense competition, collaborative efforts, and linkages with financial and other support institutions. High incidence of sales tax was also found to be affecting transparent transactions. A gap in sharing information among the manufacturers was also diagnosed as a serious constraint. Absence of any brand building through advertisements is a major setback to the popular section of the product. To remove the weaknesses and to strengthen the cluster, the Branch MSME Development Institute, Coimbatore, the field office of DC MSME, implemented several interventions in association with the cluster actors. Coimbatore Wet Grinders Manufacturers Association, CALMA, was strengthened and activated. Market development activities, initiatives for establishing a common facility center, and common procurement of raw materials were pursued. For generic brand promotion, the registration of the Coimbatore Wet Grinder under Geographical Indication Act has been completed. Formation of consortia for various purposes was undertaken. Interaction among the association member units were also encouraged. The interventions undertaken in the cluster have yielded encouraging results. DC MSME has provided a grant of 99 lakh rupees, that is $0.247 million towards the cost of machinery and equipment for the the establishment of a Common Facility Center, CFC. The CFC, once established, will bridge critical gaps in the supply chain and enhance competitiveness of the cluster units. Such has been the appreciation of the industries here that Tamil Nadu government formulated a new policy for financing cluster proposals for CFC based on a model submitted by Kalma. A common website, wetgrindercoimbatore.com, launched by the association, has generated a number of trade inquiries. Exhibitions conducted at Indore and Ahmedabad in India for popularizing the wet grinder yielded good results, with potential for getting large orders from these places. A 10-member group of the cluster is saving 6,000 rupees per month per unit by availing a loan amount of 50,000 rupees by each unit from Vijaya Bank under the Mutual Credit Guarantee Fund MCGF scheme of Small Industries Development Bank of India.
I am the first benefiter getting 50,000 from SIDBI through Kalma, and we are using that amount for our industry purpose.
The association is now publishing a bi-monthly magazine giving useful information to its members. 2 consortia were formed for undertaking activities for upgrading the quality of the motor and exporting the products. 3 of the constituent units got ISO 9001-2000. For the benefit of cluster actors, B2B meets were organized at Singapore and Malaysia. National Institute of Design was entrusted with the task of improving the design aspects of the product. Training programs are planned and conducted periodically for the members.
கவர்மெண்ட்னால எங்களுக்கு கிளஸ்டர் ப்ரோக்ராம் ஃபார்ம் பண்ணனால நல்ல உதவி கிடைக்குது. இன்னும் நல்ல உதவி கிடைக்குன்னு நாங்க எதிர்பார்க்கிறோம்.
Hyderabad, a fast-growing city, is known for IT and other enterprises. Over the years, due to the good infrastructure and other allied facilities, Hyderabad has always been a favorite for the manufacturers. The fan cluster Hyderabad has its origin in 1970s as a group of subcontracting units to a large-scale manufacturer. The fan cluster now is the largest ceiling fan manufacturing center in the country, contributing 45 to 50% of the country's production. Of this, 30% is a contribution from the MSE sector. It is estimated that about 600 units are manufacturing fans and its components in the cluster. The fan manufacturing enterprises in Hyderabad operate on 3 segments: large, medium-sized units, organized small enterprises, and unorganized micro-enterprises. The total turnover of the small enterprises is estimated at 220 crore rupees, that is $55 million per annum, providing direct employment to 10,000 people and indirect employment to 50,000 people. The diagnostic study revealed several problems the cluster was facing. There was no representative association. The cluster was functioning in an unorganized manner. Quality standards were not maintained. Intense, price-based competition, lack of brand image, very weak linkages with financial institutions, lack of R&D and testing facilities were the main problems of the cluster. High prevalence of sales tax in the state was affecting transparent business practices. MSME TI Hyderabad, formerly SISI Hyderabad, in association with cluster actors, has pursued developmental interventions in the cluster. Interventions for strengthening of the association, market development, including exports, linkages with financial institutions, quality improvement, common procurement of raw materials in bulk, etc. were pursued. As a result of the interventions, a new association, FAM, and Fan Components Manufacturers Association of AP, was formed and registered. Regular meetings of the association were held to address the needs of developmental activities of the cluster. 3 market consortia have been formed to export products. A soft consortium of 6 members was formed to procure raw materials through National Small Industries Corporation, NSIC, an autonomous body under Ministry of MSME, which helped each unit to save about ₹1,00,000, that is $2,500 on the raw material purchase. A business information center cum subcontract exchange exists in the MSME DI Hyderabad, from where members can access the needed information. A common website has been developed by the association. Training is being conducted for creating awareness for members to get BIS certification. Participation in exhibitions towards exploring new business opportunities is carried out.
Chinese are taking the major share from us. And if this cluster develops, I think that we can take the maximum share out of it and can grow as big as other people are growing.
Business development service providers, PDS, are being introduced in areas like export marketing, technology upgradation, and aesthetic design of fans. Efforts are on to promote a common brand for popularizing quality fans and for enhancing market for the products of MSE enterprises.
अब कोशिश करके हाइपन फैन बना के और इसको विज्ञापन के जरिए या गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट में इसकी पुष्टि करने के बाद अच्छे फैन बना के हमारा भी हम लोगों में भी एक्सपोर्ट का और गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट का ऑर्डर मिलेगा, ऐसी आशा हम करते हैं.
As part of the cluster development program, linkages were developed SIDBI, public sector banks like Andhra Bank and State Bank of India. State Bank of India is advancing 1.5 crore rupees or 0.37 million US dollars credit to 2 fan units. 12 units were certified as ISO 9000-2000 units, and products of 4 units got the BIS certification by the Bureau of Indian Standards.
Cluster is helping us out, so we'll have a lot of exposure to the overseas market.
The association has submitted an application to the Andhra Pradesh government to allot 50 acres of land for establishment of fan park with a state-of-the-art infrastructure with an estimated investment of 200 crore rupees or 50 million US dollars by the fan manufacturing units. The park, when established, would enable the units to overcome several deficiencies affecting